Welcome back to another episode of ATL on Fire, the podcast where we talk all things Atlanta United football and all things soccer. A little bit of technical difficulty, Dave, but we are in an awesome spot here at Wild Heaven, Fox Brothers Barbecue in Toco Hills.
You know, we were waiting for so long for this place to open, and now that it opened, we're here. We said we would do a live broadcast from, and we got Hayden, the manager, here.
Hayden
Awesome.
has set us up with an actual fire, so this is pretty magical.
Yeah. Now, Hayden, the rumor is that you put in that fireplace just for us. Is that true?
Yes.
So Hayden, tell us a little bit about the new location. You know, I met you at the Wild Heaven location, which you managed for a long time and still are in there quite a bit. But this new location is fantastic. Can you tell us? Might need to just pick it up.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah. So we opened late October, towards the very end of October. We partnered with Fox Brothers. We announced about a year ago. A lot of construction went into this. A lot of minute details, like the new mantle that we have here. Brew house
It's very
is in the
nice,
back.
the mantle.
Yeah. We have 6 3.5 barrel fermenters, and we have a 7 barrel fermenter as well. And we have the whole brew house set up towards the back. When you come in, you actually, if you go to the right where the restrooms are, you can actually see the brew house.
So what percentage of Wild Heaven beer now is made here for the whole enterprise?
Once we get a couple of batches going through, probably about 50% of the beer poured here will be made here.
Okay.
Beer that is made here will only be poured here. It won't be at Avondale or our West End location.
So you have to come here to get the exclusives.
You have to come here to get the exclusives.
Nice.
Josh Franks, who's our head brewer at Avondale, he will also be brewing here. We have a couple of cool batches coming out. I know he's got a couple of good ideas, some unique and new hop varieties that he's wanting to work with, and of course, some nice crispy lagers.
I know. All the beers are incredibly creative, right?
They are, and I know that you guys just did a Sierra Nevada one for the happy hour. It's amazing how you guys are always just testing new things, and I thought that Sierra Nevada was fantastic. Is that still on draft?
Yeah, that is the Brasstown. We named it after Brasstown Bald, which is the highest point here in Georgia, because we couldn't name it Sierra Nevada. But it's made with whole
almost as high as the Sierra Nevadas.
Almost, if you look way up. But it is made with whole cone Cascade hops. So that's what gives it that unique flavor. It's whole cone instead of the actual hop pellets, which most breweries use.
Awesome. And for the non-beer drinkers out there, thanks for bringing up a bottle of Wolf Mountain Vineyard red wine here we're drinking. So which one are we drinking here, Dave?
It's the Instinct.
It's the Instinct. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it's really good.
So
thanks to Brandon up at Wolf Mountain Vineyards for giving the wine, for selling the wine through Wild Heaven Brewery, so you can come down here and have them both.
Absolutely. Now, Hayden, I know you and I have spoken about Atlanta United heading into 2025, but it'd be great as a fan. Tell us a little bit about your background with why you started watching Atlanta United and what you think about happening this year.
So I grew up playing soccer. I grew up following Arsenal in the EPL. My grandfather's team, my grandfather was in the Air Force. He was stationed outside of Ramstein Air Force Base, so he used to go to the Kaiserslautern games when he was in Germany. So I follow Kaiserslautern too. So I'm out there in Bundesliga 2 right now. I've always wanted to have an MLS team, but we didn't have any in the South. It seemed like they were all in the Northeast and all out West. But when the expansion team was announced, I went to the very first game in Bobby Dodd.
Yeah, how incredible was that game?
It's fantastic. It was a great experience. And then once, the bins opened up and we were having all the matches there, it's a great experience.
So there was a player who played in that game?
And I turned to Dave and I said, Who is that? Who is that player?
Right. We were watching, we were like, we didn't know what to expect from this squad. And we're like, who is that guy?
Right, yeah.
And that was, of course,
Miggy Almiron, right? So what do you think about his re-signing in return?
I think it's fantastic. I haven't really got a whole lot of chances to see some of the preseason matches. I've seen just snippets in just 1 or 2 streams. He looks great. He's still in great form. As evident by, if you've noticed, a lot of Newcastle fans were really sad to see him go. I know they did him a good proper send-off. So I think he's fantastic for the team. It's nice to have some of that veteran leadership that I think we will need.
Absolutely. Yeah, because he was young player
Right.
when he was here in 17, 18, and now he's somebody we're going to lean on for that leadership role.
Yeah, not too
Right.
many players in the MLS have Champions League experience, right? So that is pretty
It's going to
amazing.
go a long way. And also we signed Emmanuel Latte Lath, a striker from Middlesbrough. What do you think of that?
He has some explosive speed. I've seen some of his highlight reels. He amazingly, the way he can get past defenders. I've seen some of the snippets of him with Middlesbrough. He can literally circle around a defender, and so if someone's feeding him balls, named Miggy,
His
might-
pace
Miggy
is pretty amazing.
And Miranchuk, I think, are going to be able to feed him quite a bit.
Yeah.
We have two guys that have a very good IQ on the ball.
And
in midfield.
Saba, don't
and
forget
Saba, who
Saba.
scored 2 today.
Right. Yeah, so Dave saw Latte Lath today. He came in, and of course I missed like the first 2 minutes he was on, which he evidently snaked it from like a center back
Right.
against FC Dallas's preseason game today. And
Yeah, he
missed
stole it from him, ran right in on goal, and he should have scored. He just missed by a couple of feet. But just the willingness to work, you could see right away, and you could also see the pace. I mean, it's frightening pace. And so I said to Mikey Dodds, we didn't really get to see whether he could finish today because he didn't get that much service. Of course, he wasn't playing with any of the starters.
Correct.
So no Saba, Miranchuk, or Almiron. But obviously in the championship, it's clear that he can finish. So because he scored a lot of goals over the last 2 years.
Right.
So
Yeah, and Middlesbrough fans are already sad that he's gone. Heard a lot of commentary on the fact that they're now already struggling without him.
Middlesbrough, when we got him, they were probably 4th or 5th, so they were in the hunt to get promoted. So they are definitely missing him.
So in case people don't know, he scored 27 goals in 59 games for Middlesbrough. So that's a pretty healthy return in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of being able to put goals in the net, we've got a new coach in Ronnie Dyla, and I think his average goals per game, looking at his track record, is pretty solid. Dave, we talked about
It's high.
it's like 1.5,
Which
1.6.
is a good thing. Yeah.
And then you add on a team that is, completely set up to attack with the talent that we have.
Yeah, so for those of you guys don't know out there about Ronnie Dyla, he's been in MLS. He won an MLS title with New York City FC, and then he was over in Europe for two different
Scottish
Belgian,
Premier League.
Belgian.
Yeah.
He came originally from Celtic. Right.
yeah.
Then to MLS, and then back to Club Bruges was the last one he came from. But he has a terrific record.
So we have
Won
all
titles in multiple countries, now 3 different countries.
seems like all the ingredients are there, and we've seen talent on this team in years past with Almada and Araujo, and we're not afraid to spend the money to get this talent in, but something does feel different this year, and I think obviously a new coach is helping with that, but it just feels like even the fans maybe re-engage. I'm very excited to see what the turnout is next Saturday, the 22nd, home opener against Montreal. What do you think the crowd's going to be like? Are you going?
Oh, I'm not.
That's right, you're out of town.
It's out of town. Wedding anniversary. No, I think it's going to be electric. I think, like you said, the fans are getting re-engaged. There was a lot of disengagement from a lot of our fan base over the past 2-ish years.
Yeah. Sure.
And I think with what they've done with these signings and the coach will kind of re-engage a lot of fans. So I expect to see a very high level of energy in the stadium, as well as
Yeah,
from
you
the
got to
actual
figure
players.
next weekend the game's got to be sold out.
Do we know?
Right?
Is it going to be?
72,000?
Is it going to be 72? Or are they opening it all
It's
the way up?
open, yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
All right, that's
That
the question.
doesn't mean there's 72 because, the question is, will they come or do they need to see Atlanta return first before we get back to the 72? I think we'll clearly have a 60 or something like this, but the question is right off the bat, are people excited and going to come, or do they have to see first us win before they do that?
I think with Almiron,
It's going to be close to 72 with Almon. But yeah,
You would think.
I still think, having gone to the playoff games in the Benz when we were, still in it, that against Miami with Messi, and we still didn't sell it out with Messi in there.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
We're still not going to sell it out. I think.
So you're predicting high 60s of some kind.
I honestly think it's going to be like 60. Not even high 60s. Like if I'm
I'll
doing
go
the eyeball
over
test,
on that.
You going over?
I'm going over.
Okay.
So this is our first.
Well, we're
bet
not
of
going
the
to
year.
get an official number that I trust. So.
Troy, if you're in the audience there, can you text your mother with the bet? You have to keep Carmen, make her aware of the bet. So the first bet was over under on 60,000. I took over. Mikey Dobbs said 60,000.
All right. Well, Kevin or somebody in the stands is going to be the gauge by the eyeball test whether it's under or over. Because I'm not going to
go by.
I'm not going to go by
actual
the number.
stuff.
They're going to say it's 7. Is it some record?
Yeah, because they tend to inflate the numbers.
Yeah. I would say over 60.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 65.
I think slightly over 60 feels realistic. All right. Well, I think the weather, hopefully after Thursday's dip in temperature, is going to be in the teens here in Atlanta. Maybe if it's warmer, that'll help the crowds funnel in too. So Atlanta United, Dave and I spoke about where we thought, assuming Latte Lath was going to get signed, which we thought during the last podcast, that we'd possibly be able to finish in the top 4 in the East. What are your thoughts on what would be a good season for Atlanta finishing in the East?
Keep in mind, you're not going to get the benefit of we're going to go around the league and give you the preview. So you're not going to get that. So you're actually being put on the spot to make a prediction even before that. Sorry, Hayden.
I would say top 4.
Top 4.
I think top 4, where we look now and how the attacking pieces are set. I would say top 4 and a golden
You mean
boot.
4th, or are you going anywhere 1 to 4? That's pretty big.
3 to 4.
3
to 4. Now, there's been a lot of changes in the East.
That's what I said
I think
last
Cincinnati and Columbus are going to have a
We're
little bit
going
of
to
a
cover
slump.
that, yeah.
They're going to have a sophomore slump. They rode
I
high.
agree with
they
you
rode
on
high.
Columbus, not so much on Cincinnati, but we'll get to that.
All right. Where do we want to go next? Maybe we want to talk about MLS, some of the other teams that have made moves and where you see things shaking out.
Yeah, Hayden, you're welcome to stay with us, or I know you have job, manager, so if you have to get back, right? You want to say anything else to the audience about the brewery?
No, just come on out. It's, when the weather's warm, there's a line out the door. It's great.
Yeah, there's a beautiful
patio,
courtyard where everybody
courtyard's
can
fantastic.
sit. Yeah.
And as you guys heard, Hayden's obviously a football fan. He's got an Arsenal logo on, so there will be English Premier League on in the mornings here on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm
Correct.
assuming.
Yep.
And great TVs, great setup for that.
There'll be a match tomorrow at 11:30. I do believe it's Man U versus the other team in North London.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate you setting us up
Cheers,
here.
guys. Yeah, absolutely. Y'all enjoy.
All right,
And cheers.
Thank you.
So,
All right, Mikey Dobbs.
you want to break it down, Dave? You have done your homework
Done a deep
on
dive.
all the MLS teams,
Yeah.
and are going to start just dropping the knowledge.
Do you want to go right to the east, or do you want to start and build towards the east of our predictions? Let's build towards it.
You want to do that, or should we give away some swag too?
We can also do that.
I mean, you're going to put me in charge.
If you're not here down at the brewery, run here immediately because we have a ton of swag to give away if you want. Obviously, the good folks here who came out maybe want to give something away.
Yeah.
You want to pick someone?
Hey, Ann, can you hear me? Ann, you want an Atlanta United jersey?
Or she can come pick from the prize table.
Come pick from the prize table, something. Yeah.
Come on, Ann.
If you can hear me, come pick something from the prize table. If you're an Atlanta
There's two
United
Anns,
fan.
'cause there's another Ann.
Oh, there we go. 2 Anns.
That's a license plate frame. There are socks. There's a pennant. There's a poster. There's a pin. You might want a pin. Look at the pins. Those are all Atlanta United pins that you can pin to your.
So
You like that one? Okay, she picks the pin.
feel
We have
free to come
keychains,
up
too.
and grab some Atlanta United swag if you can hear me on the table here. Whatever you see that looks good.
Pete, yeah, go. Big fan.
So Dave, who is your prediction to win MLS Cup?
Well,
this
we
year?
got to go through
I know.
the league
We're gonna
first.
go, you want to go through? Okay,
Yes,
let's
because
do it.
otherwise you're not going to know anything.
I know Nothing.
So you know how we've always said that we
But
know
I'm
a
gonna
lot
say
about
Inter
Atlanta
Miami.
United and less about MLS. Well, we're changing that.
Yeah.
We're throwing out our old slogan. It's gone because
Ah.
we now know tons about MLS. It's time.
We do. It is. It
It's
is
time.
time.
How many years have we been doing this?
7 years. 7 years.
7 years of podcasting. Okay, so let's start in the West, right? So last year in the West, right, the order of the finish was LAFC first, LA Galaxy, Real Salt Lake, and then Seattle and Houston. Okay? And
Okay.
obviously LA Galaxy won the title, right?
Yep.
They defeated New York in the final. How was New York the Eastern representative? We'll get to that. Okay, so you want to start with LAFC?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the notes on LAFC. Where did it go?
Defending MLS Cup champs.
Yes. So, oh my goodness, where did it go?
Who did they beat in the MLS Cup?
New York.
New York.
The Red Bulls.
That's right. The Red Bulls made a late run
Okay.
through the playoffs.
So here's the thing about LA. So first of all, they have an issue, right? Because Ricky Puig, right, ACL in the semifinal, he tore his ACL. So last year they had this super dynamic, right? Ricky Puig, Joseph Paintsil, Gabriel Peck, Jovic, right? So all of those guys were interchangeable and they could all score whatever. And so there's a couple of issues, right? Ricky Puig is out basically for the whole year.
Oh,
so
really?
they got to try to replace him. ACL in the final last year. He might be back 2/3 of the way through the season. So they signed Christian Ramirez from Columbus.
Okay.
Okay, so you know, U.S. Christian Ramirez. Christian Ramirez is 33 though now. That is not
Didn't
as
Columbus
young anymore.
lose somebody else big?
Yes, we'll get to that in a second. They lost Cucho Hernandez, but so anyway, they're counting on Christian Ramirez to replace Ricky Puig. That is not a like-for-like replacement at any level. So anyway, that's a big move. They also signed. They also have a Danish central defender, Matthias Jorgensen. But I think the big story here is that Ricky Puig is not been replaced.
Right.
So
and he's, you know, like I said,
and he was the best player on
yeah,
that
it's
team.
hard to replace a young guy
He had
who's got the energy.
13 goals and 15 assists last year.
Yeah.
So that is a big, big hole. Okay. Okay, let's get to LA Galaxy now, right? Well, let's go to Seattle first, right? So Seattle signs U.S. international Jesus Ferreira from FC Dallas.
Right.
The merry-go-round is starting to begin. He's only 24.
Is he only 24?
Yeah, he's only 24.
Because he's kind of out of the U.S. men's national team picture right now, right?
Yeah, because he didn't really score last year.
No one
So the
knows
question
this.
is whether or not in Seattle he's going to be resurrected or not, right? So in Seattle, last year they signed a designated player, Pedro de la Vega. He was okay. He's a 24-year-old from Argentina, from Club Lanús. He was okay last year. They're hoping that he is adjusted and takes the step up. They still have Christian Roldan. They still have the young American who was actually not that young, but who had a breakthrough season last year, Paul Rothrock. And he joins now Rusnak, who is their main assist guy, 16 assists last year for Seattle. And also Jordan Morris is still there.
Okay.
So the attack now is Jesus Ferreira and Jordan Morris, two American internationals. We think better or worse, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Seattle's always in the. What's going on their coaching front?
They still have the same coach. They've had the same coach for years.
So I think they're going to be probably.
By the end of last year, they were really surging and playing some of the best football in the West. But then they got, they lost to the Galaxy in the playoffs, so that wasn't so good. Yeah, a lot of people are expecting them to take a big step up, having gotten Jesus Ferreira.
Yeah, I don't see that guy being a
I'm
difference
not
maker on a
convinced
team
either.
of 11. I don't know.
Yeah, not so much. Yeah. Okay, so then also on the west on the lower side, Jack McGlynn, who's 21 years old. He goes from Philly. He was like one of the best up-and-coming players in the Philadelphia Union, right? And he goes to Houston, right? But Houston lost their whole midfield. Hector Herrera, gone to Toluca. And also Carrasquilla, the 26-year-old from Panama, is gone to Pumas. So 2 Mexican clubs come raiding for Houston's both center midfielders gone. So they pick up Jack McGlynn. They're very excited about that.
Yeah.
But is a 21-year-old Jack McGlynn going to replace the 2 veteran? The Mexican, obviously, Herrera is the captain of Mexico.
Right.
So how do you feel about that?
It sounds like a downgrade in terms of at least this year until they get a little bit more mature with some other replacements.
Yeah. And also Jolovich for the Galaxy has left, and he's gone to Kansas City, right?
Okay.
So this is the new cash inter-transfer fee, right? So this guy scored 21 goals last year in MLS, right? And he's left, right? So that's another blow for Galaxy, right? So Ricky Puig out for the year, and then also Jolovich also gone, signed. So that's a big change. Where did my LAFC notes go?
LAFC.
So LAFC got your favorite French footballer.
Yeah, with the striker up there.
Yeah. Where did the rest of the notes go?
Yeah, I saw him in preseason. He had a nice setup the other day.
I wanted to also, before we get to them, I want to also... Okay, go ahead.
LAFC went out in the semifinals, correct?
They lost in the semifinals to the Galaxy, right?
Okay.
Galaxy got to the won the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I can't find. I'll find it in a minute. But anyway, where my notes are for LAFC. But let's also talk about our good friend Bruce Arena, right? So Bruce Arena goes to San Jose. So San Jose was dead last.
Yeah.
Okay, and so Bruce Arena signs Joseph Martinez, right? And also Christian Arango, right? So Christian Arango was the entire team for Salt Lake City last year. He had 17 goals and 12 assists, and he leaves Salt Lake to go to San Jose, right? So Bruce Arena comes in, and within just a very brief period of time, he gets Joseph Martinez. Joseph Martinez had 11 goals last year for Montreal, and he gets Christian Arango. So,
Yeah. Do you think he's going to have above or below 10 goals this season? Who's it?
Joseph?
Joseph Martinez. Yeah.
you got to figure his scoring goes up because he's not the main target anymore, right? That's going to be Arango is going to be the main guy everybody's going to be focusing on. He's the second guy. And Bruce Arena, as we talked about all the time, can really, really coach.
So is Arango out on more of a forward type of position? Okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, he plays a little bit withdrawn. He also gets a lot of assists, but, those are two guys interchangeable. They're going to play almost two forwards or withdrawn forward. Presumably. I mean, some people are saying that Joseph Martinez would come off the bench, but I think they're both going to start.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. And
you took too many notes, Dave.
I know. Somehow I cannot find my notes on LAFC because anyway, the bottom line is LAFC is basically sat put. They have almost exactly the same squad. I'll find it in a minute. Is there anybody else we want to discuss in the West? Portland, we'll get to in a second. Portland loses Evander. This is a huge loss. So let's go to the East, right? So
Okay.
anyway, so the bottom line is LAFC stays sort of put. LA Galaxy has a ton of turnover. They added player, Christian Ramirez. They lost a couple of players. That's a huge turnover. Seattle gets better because they get Ferreira.
In the West is also the new San Diego club in MLS, correct?
Yes.
And they signed the Mexican star.
Yep.
But didn't do a lot for a new club that is going up against LAFC and LA Galaxy, which are clubs, particularly LAFC, that did do big splashy investments right out of the gates. I mean, LAFC, kind of took it up a notch from what Atlanta United did, honestly, right, when they came into the league and showed that they're, willing to spend the money on new talent. But outside of, was it Chucky Lozano there at in San Diego, I feel like, I don't know, they'll probably do okay, but I don't think they're going to do great this season.
Yeah, you got to figure, their best hope is just a playoff spot, maybe, if they're fortunate enough, but not so much beyond that. Yeah, I think somehow my LAFC notes got deleted, but it doesn't matter. They really are stat put, right? But they have, they still have Vela, they still have Wanga, they still have, and they still have Giroud, right? That's the big thing. Now, Giroud really did settle at the end of last year, right? But you got to figure he's going to come start scoring, right?
Yeah.
And they also have the assist guy.
I think they'll get more out of Giroud this coming year now that he's maybe learned a little bit about the MLS.
I would think that he would settle, and so you got to figure with them maintaining everybody, they got to be a slight favorite above LA Galaxy, right?
Great.
So you want to make a prediction about who's going to win the West? Who are you going to take?
I will take LAFC.
I think I'm going to take LAFC too. I'm not convinced Seattle, Jesus Ferreira is going to do it. And losing Ricky Puig is just too much for Galaxy at the moment.
Agreed.
I'm just looking at the table from last year to see if there's anybody else who could come surprise. Houston Dynamo got much worse. Real Salt Lake, who was number 3, lost best player by far. The other one that could get a little bit better, the surprise team, was Colorado. So Colorado has Mihailovic, and they also have Zach Steffen, who seems to have settled after coming back to MLS. I think they could be a little bit better this year, even under Chris Armas. Now, Chris Armas has got that crazy Red Bull pressing style, which helps. But I got to figure, Zach Steffen looked to me, I don't know if you saw the U.S. national team games over the last series of months, and Zach Steffen looked to me like he's really back. He just needed to play.
I don't know that he's really back. I think he's showing signs of improvement.
I think, honestly, that Zach Steffen's going to be our starting goalkeeper in the World Cup.
I wouldn't say that's impossible. I think if he continues to get starting minutes, like to your point, and proves himself to Pochettino, I think that'll be the big question mark. Does Pochettino trust him?
So now we go to the East. Let's start at sort of the bottom of the East. So Chicago, right? Berhalter, right? Our favorite coach, Berhalter. How are we thinking? So now Chicago made a run at
Neymar Jr.
And came up empty.
So did they? We heard that announcement basically the day of our last podcast. Did they go after and steal anybody that was, in the wings?
They have one big signing, Jonathan Bamba. He's 28 from the Ivory Coast.
Okay.
He leaves Celta Vigo, a really major club in Spain, to come here, but he's a winger, right? He's a creative guy. He creates things, but he doesn't really score that much. So how does that, to me, solve, how does Berhalter, if you look at Chicago last year, their number of goals was woeful. They scored only 40 goals for Mikey Dubs, right? And they gave up 62, right? So just to comparison, the top teams in the league, Miami and Columbus, scored over 70.
Yeah.
So that's 32 goals you got to make up, and I don't think that Bamba's going to do it. Anyway, but I thought, we had to talk about our good friend Berhalter.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never felt that Berhalter is. I thought that he's a average to above average, slightly above average MLS coach, but not great. Remember with those Columbus teams, he said, "Oh, I don't have enough talent to win MLS," and then the next two coaches that Columbus got both won MLS, right? So, you know, one of whom was Caleb Porter, who is now the New England coach. But New England,
I think you're being nice to him by saying he's above average. He's average.
Yeah, and New England, you know, continues to have nobody, right? I kept waiting for New England to reload to give him a chance, Caleb Porter, because Caleb Porter has won the title at two different clubs, Portland and Columbus, so clearly he can coach, right? And New England, I keep waiting for the announcement of signings, and there's nothing. Right? No word. If you're out there and you know of what's happening in New England, you think that there's something coming, please let us know. Yeah. Hit us up on social media, because as far as I know, nothing.
What about Philadelphia Union? Any movement there?
Philadelphia Union, I mean, they retained Gazdag, their leading scorer, so thank God they brought him back. But, you know, as we just talked about, Jack McGlynn was their best young midfielder. He's gone, right? And they brought in the coach. What's the name of the coach?
Where did Jim Curtin end up after he left Philadelphia?
He hasn't gone anywhere.
He's
out of work right now.
Out of work,
He's available.
Okay.
It's Bradley Carnell is the coach at Union. He was the coach of St. Louis, who did amazing in his first year and then bombed in his second year. Okay. So how do we feel about that move?
I don't know enough to really have a strong opinion, but
he was so good the first year at St. Louis. It looked like it was.
St. Louis completely shocked everybody that first season. You had predicted that they would be at bottom of the table, and one of the few times you were absolutely wrong on St. Louis that year. They finished what, top 5, didn't they?
Yeah, they were like third.
Yeah. Okay.
I finally found my notes on LAFC. It's Bogus is the other guy returning next to Bouanga and Giroud and Vela, but Bogus had 15 goals alongside Bouanga's 20 goals.
Okay.
Okay, so now going around. Now we're moving a little bit higher up the table. Nashville.
Yeah.
Right? So Nashville fired the coach, and then they hired the U.S. national team assistant coach. Where did my notes from Nashville go?
And do they still have, who's the U.S. men's national team center back?
Yes.
Why am I blanking on his name?
Walker Zimmerman?
Zimmerman still there? He's
yeah,
still
so they just signed Gaston Brugman, 32, from Uruguay. He came from Galaxy. He was, the year before he was really good on Galaxy. Last year, not as much. He got pushed out. He wasn't playing as much. They signed him as like their designated player. Mm-hmm. And he joins Hani Mukhtar and Schaffelberger, right? And they still have Zimmerman, and their coach is Callahan, the U.S. national team assistant coach. But they're counting on Brugman from Uruguay to really set up Mukhtar and Schaffelberger, and those guys had it really stepped back last year. They couldn't really score.
Mukhtar particularly had a big step back last year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Nashville, we thought Chicago was bad at 40 goals. Nashville scored 38 goals last year. That's it, right? So they need a big upgrade. They signed a midfield to kind of spray it, but it doesn't seem to be the answer for me, right?
Okay.
And then...
What about Orlando?
Orlando absolutely step put. They haven't lost anybody. They haven't signed anybody. Coach. But Pereira is a good coach, and they always finish towards the top. Like, I don't see them going up. I don't see them going down.
Where did they end up last year?
Orlando finished fourth.
Fourth, okay.
Right, so now the big one that we need to talk about just below Orlando in the table was Charlotte. Charlotte thinks that they are really movers and shakers. So Wilfred Zaha, 32 years old,
big
joins.
Fan of Zaha.
He played last year at Galatasaray, scored 9 goals for Galatasaray from the winger. I mean, he's not a really straight-out goal scorer, but he still scored 9 goals for Galatasaray.
He plays up on the left and usually just tortures defenders.
Karol Swiderski is back. He was their leading scorer. He went to Europe, and he's now back. And Patrick Aubameyang, right, from the U.S. national team. He got some playing time with the U.S. national team this summer. He scored 11 goals last year. and he's back. So attacking-wise, they obviously had a terrific defense last year, anchored by Tim Ream, although Tim Ream is now 37 years old.
Yeah.
So he's ageless, maybe.
So you're saying he's not going to be as good as Messi at 37?
Nobody's as good as Messi.
All right.
But Charlotte only scored 46 goals. They only gave up 37. Right, they really needed to up the scoring, and they bring in Zaha to do that. And they bring back Swiderski to do that. So they should be upgraded offensively. Obviously, Dean Smith, the coach, really good defensive coach, right? And they gave up 37, which I believe, was the fewest goals in the league. Yeah. So you got to figure the defense is all coming back. And they've upgraded offensively. Yeah. Charlotte maybe looking
moving up. All right.
Okay, so now we talk about the real contenders in the East. Right? So you want to talk about Columbus or Cincinnati or Miami first?
Let's talk about Columbus, since they lost Cucho, who went to Europe, correct?
What is Columbus doing?
Yeah.
Poor Wilfred Nancy, right? He comes in there, he wins a title, right? You would think, and they actually spent some money, right? They Diego Rossi, and they got Cucho Hernandez for Wilfred Nancy. He came in and he brought them a title, right? So you would think they're like, okay, we have the formula. They have the best coach in MLS, in my opinion, in Wilfred Nancy. They had the players. You would think. So last year, right? Last year they get to the CONCACAF Champions League final. They struggled a little bit with that MLS because they were playing in two different competitions. They didn't have the greatest start, not a terrible start. But then they really got it going in the middle of the season. And then, we talked about it at the end of last year, the podcast, the Aiden Morris effect. Yeah. How can you sell the best young U.S. national midfielder who was playing alongside Nagbe in the middle of the season? He went to Middlesbrough, ironically, where he starts alongside Latte Lath, who's now come here, right? He's doing phenomenally in the championship, but they just got rid of him.
Yeah.
And now, on top of that, they sell Cucho Hernandez. So Cucho Hernandez is now gone to Spain.
What did they sell him for? What was the transfer fee?
It was high, but not, I don't have it written down, but I think it was something like 20.
Oh, okay. So just shy of what Miguel Almiron went for 5 years ago?
Yeah.
6 years ago?
But honestly, you're like, how can you lose Aiden Morris in the midfield and lose Cucho Hernandez, who went to Real Betis, right? And they have done nothing to replace either of those players. Yeah. So that's the heart of their engine, which is why they got knocked out of the playoffs, because they didn't have Aiden Morris playing alongside Nagbe.
Curious. Last year, with Tata at Miami and Wilfred Nancy at the Crew,
yep.
Who is the better coach in MLS last year, Tata or Wilfred Nancy? I know you're pulling hairs there.
That's pulling hairs. They're the two best coaches.
And the reason I ask that is with Ronnie Dyla, who has won an MLS Cup in the past and has won multiple championships in Europe, who's the better coach in MLS this year? Just at face value, if you're just saying.
Well, Tata's gone, right?
Tata's gone. So
he's been replaced by Javier Mascherano, right? We'll get to that in a minute. But you're saying who's the best coach in the East?
In MLS.
I mean, I still think Wilfred Nancy's the best coach, but they've just totally decimated his squad. You could be the best coach in the world, and you can't make up for not having.
Do you think it's possible? A couple months in with Atlanta United, you would put Ronnie Dyla in that position if we're doing the things you want to see?
I think we'll get to Atlanta United last, but I think Atlanta United, attacking-wise, is going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
So
we'll get there. Okay. So the Crew trajectory is down.
I don't see
just
how
based
you
on
going
talent.
up. Cucho Hernandez is the whole the whole game. They have nobody to score. Yeah. He had 19 goals for Columbus, which was slightly down, but and Diego Rossi only scores because Cucho Hernandez is taking all the attention. And the only reason why they scored all those goals is because Aiden Morris and Nagbe would just have them win the territorial battle, right? All of that is gone.
And Nagbe's not getting any younger. How old is he this season?
Nagbe is quite old. He's like 36.
Yeah. So he's he's going to lose his motor.
Yeah, he's losing a step. I mean, you could already see when he was playing next to Aiden Morris. He could play really smart. Aiden Morris did all this work, and then Nagbe made him look really good.
Yeah.
But without Aiden Morris to do all the work, where are you going to go?
Yeah. Okay.
So I goalkeeper, the young U.S. national team goalkeeper at Columbus. I'm forgetting his name, but
do we want to go Cincinnati next, or do we want to go Inter Miami next?
your choice.
Let's go Inter Miami.
Okay.
So obviously pretty flat on the talent side of Inter Miami in terms of changes, but we've got a new coach who's
not completely flat.
Okay.
And I'm going to surprise you
There's
with
some new defensive happenings now.
No. So Javier Mascherano clearly went down into his links, right? So they signed a couple of young South American attacking players, right? So forgive me, I don't know butchered the names, right? But Telesco Segovia, a Venezuela international, signs for Miami from the Portuguese top division.
And what position is he?
He's a forward.
Forward, okay.
And then Tadeo Allende, 25 years old, attacking midfielder, right? He is now on loan from Celta Vigo.
Okay.
And Gonzalo Lujan, 23-year-old, the one guy who is a defender. He's an Argentinian international already, and he played with the captain Javier Mascherano's Olympic team for Argentina. So all of those coming in.
And we still have Jordi Alba, Busquets, Suarez, Messi.
And also Robert Taylor and Yannick Bright stays and Gressel stays. And here's the one. Ready?
Yep.
You ready for it? Who they sign as their backup goalkeeper? Rios Nova.
That was a disastrous call.
What in the world are they? I mean, there's all this young super talent, right? Campana, who's quite old now, he leaves. Let's go to New England. So New England did sign a forward, but Campana is not going to change your fortune.
Especially on his own now. Especially after having the luxury of all that other talent around him, he's going to not do well.
Yeah. Oh, I did say that New England also signed another guy, Ignacius Ganazo from Nantes. They're expecting him to be really good, but his scoring record is not so good. It doesn't look to me so good. But anyway, so Javier Mascherano, really defensive-minded coach, is really good at coaching the team to be solid in the middle, especially against the counterattack. Seems to be exactly what, if he's going to work anywhere, what Miami needs to do, and what Tata really failed to do, is prevent people from counterattacking and getting at their back. Right? I mean, if you watched our games in the playoffs, those games got wide open. It was like 30 yards of space in the midfield and nobody was playing.
Especially when they didn't even need to do it.
No, they didn't need to do it. All they had to do is stay compact and let Messi beat us. Right? And Jordi Alba. Look at the stats from last year. Jordi Alba, 14 assists. Messi and Suarez each had 20 goals. Messi chipped in 16 assists. Didn't even play the whole year. Right? Gressel had 12 assists.
I was watching a little warm-up pass back and forth between Messi and Luis Suarez.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like some trainer that was passing it with Messi.
Yeah.
Because Luis Suarez looked like me out there, with the bad back passing it.
He needs a cane or a walker.
I mean, he really looked.
But he's the kind of guy who could have a walker and then he could drop the walker, make a 5-yard run and score. Right? He could do that.
But I was shocked at just how old he looked.
Or maybe he'll start biting people again.
He and Tyson could start something.
So Miami scored 79 goals last year, right? So that's the magic of Tata and that team and Messi. And so the question is, under Mascherano, do they continue? Hopefully they'll be better defensively. They gave up 50, but will they be as good offensively?
Yes.
Question.
I think they're going to be just as good because still Messi. It's his last year where he's really got anything in the tank. I think this is going to be the year he needs to win MLS Cup. I'm not betting against Messi. He obviously has a lot more control of what the club is doing and kind of what the coach is doing as well. So he's not going to have...
They're best friends. So that's a little weird, right? Yeah. Mascherano and Messi played together and they're best friends. And I don't know how that's going to do to the locker room.
The locker room is run by Messi as well. I mean, that's the thing.
It's his team.
It's his team.
The other thing I want you to keep in mind, though, God bless MLS, somehow they magically figured out a way for Miami to be included in the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
right? And it was via the U.S. Open Cup, which wasn't actually in the original rules, and then they said, oh, it's a qualifying spot after Miami won. So they're in the Club World Cup, and that means in the middle of the summer, they now have to play a minimum of 3 extra games.
The first time any team is qualified for a tournament after the rule was made after they won something.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Does that sound suspicious to you?
Not at all.
All right.
On
to
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Who is what, your supporters' Shield favorite? I'm
Well,
guessing.
so hold on.
I'm jumping.
So Cincinnati, everybody thought was just a disaster, right? Because the best player for Cincinnati, probably the best player in the entire MLS, was Lucho Hernandez, right? So anybody who watched the Dallas scrimmage today realized that Lucho Hernandez is now on Dallas. He had 14 goals and 19 assists last year, right? He got mad because he's like, they kept selling off all of their, all of his South American friends and all of what the best players, and he's like, I have no support. Okay, so he held out. He refused to train in the preseason and caused a stir, and they eventually got rid of him. So if you're a Cincinnati fan, you're thinking disaster, right? Lucha Hernandez, the whole team offensively. They have an amazing back four. Don't forget that they still have Miles Robinson. They still have Miazga. They still have Yedlin. I mean, it's an amazing back four. Okay, but here's the thing. Suddenly, at the last minute, Kevin Denke, 24, from the Togo, signs from a Belgian club. He scored 24 goals in top division in Belgium, right? That is amazing. And unbelievably, Portland sells a Vander.
Why didn't we go after that guy?
We should have. So for those who aren't following Portland, I don't begrudge you anything because under Neville, there's no reason to watch Portland. But they did have an amazing player, Evander, 26 years old from Brazil, 16 goals and 19 assists. Might have been the best player in the whole of MLS. Now goes to Cincinnati, where he joins Denke and that back line.
There you go.
So,
and they still have Miles Robinson, who played great on his, was it his second year in Cincinnati last year?
And you want to know how much they spent on these? So Cincinnati, the critique is their small club, right? Doug's out there. He's a Cincinnati fan, right? But the critique is small club, not willing to spend anything. How much do you think they spent on Denke?
I think they spent, is that a transfer fee or
transfer
a
fee? A true transfer fee.
True transfer fee, they spent $16 million.
Exactly $16 million. That is a big
because
spend.
that was the MLS record up until Latte Lath, $22 million Atlanta United spent.
Right, and do you know how much they spent for Evander as the internal cash now transfer?
I'm going to just throw out there $7 million.
12.
Oh, wow.
12. So if you're Cincinnati, they just splashed out $28 million on attack to join that back.
Yeah. So,
and they, of course, have the amazing coach in Pat Noonan.
Quick news update, which I don't know that is news at all, but USL is now going to start a Division I league to compete against MLS with 12 teams.
In the future at some point.
In 2027 after the World Cup. How are they thinking they're going to get the money to make those types of offers to compete?
They're not.
They're not.
So what I think their play to me is by starting a first division, they have the full spectrum. And then if they really establish that and get a couple of good clubs that could potentially, all they need is one or two clubs that could be MLS kind of clubs, then they can merge with MLS and become the lower divisions, right? And they have promotion relegation. That's their play.
All right.
Is what I think.
Everyone wins if that's the case.
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered all of those, and now we return to Atlanta United.
So Cincinnati, we're saying, is better. Even
think,
with the loss of, is it Lucho Acosta? Or what's his last name?
Yeah, Lucho Acosta.
Okay, you had said a different name.
Oh, sorry. Lucho Acosta, sorry.
Yeah, Acosta, who's at Dallas now.
Now at Dallas.
Yeah, okay.
But he's old.
Is he old?
Yeah, Lucho Acosta is, let's see, do I have his age? I didn't write down his age, but he's 33, 32. He's 32 years old, right? So at 32 years old, right, he has almost the exact same stats as Evander, who's 26.
Okay.
So to me, that's a like for like. Now, he's obviously got to settle into the side, but it's an upgrade. I think they honestly upgraded over Lucha Hernandez, and they brought in Dengue as a designated player.
Okay.
That is a frightening squad now. I mean, if you're there, there's Doug. Hey, Doug.
Now,
Listening, he's gotten preoccupied.
so, on to Atlanta United.
Yes.
The last competitive team in the
Last
East.
but not least, the most important, Atlanta United. So first of all, we learned today that Latte Lath likes to go by both names together. That's not like a first name and last name.
Got
It's
it. That's
Latte
it.
Lath. It's the
Latte
same.
Lath, yeah.
Okay, so, just to give you some background, he's 26 years old. He's from the Ivory Coast. He plays for Middlesbrough. He scored 27 goals in 59 games. Prior to that, he actually had a tremendous scoring record in the Swiss top division, right? And he also was cleared with his visa, so we're not going to have that problem. So, I mean, I don't know if you watched him today, but we didn't get to see him finish, but the speed looked electric, the work ethic, he was pressuring.
Yeah, knocking. Again, unlike my favorite player ever of Atlanta United,
Miguel Berry.
How many people did he knock over in the game? He knocked like 3 people over.
He did. He totally laid out a
He
couple of guys.
got a yellow card in a friendly.
And there was one time, actually, the defender was dawdling on the ball, and he went running super for it to try to take it off his foot and go to goal. The guy reacted at the last second, and he bowled him over, but he was gone if that guy didn't make that play.
Yeah.
I mean, he is like...
Yeah, the commentary kept mentioning his speed, just closing space.
He looked to me faster than Mascara.
Okay.
I mean, we have never had, even Joseph Martinez, who was super quick, wasn't fast with pace, right? We have never.
So I don't know if it's true or not. I on the social medias, I can only trust so much with Mascara. They were saying that he may have just been a little homesick or wanted to go back to Colombia. He's obviously under contract for another year. So unless something changed, right, he was going to be a player. But it is something to keep an eye on, whether his head is with Atlanta United this season.
Yeah, I think he thinks that he's a starter, but for Atlanta United, he's a change of pace player off the bench. There is no way he's starting over Almiron. There's no way he's starting over Miranchuk. There's no way he's starting over Saba.
The reason I bring it up is I noticed something subtle in today's preseason game. He got fouled and kind of dinged up, and usually one of your players comes and gives you a little slap on the butt. How are you?
Yeah.
Everybody left that guy alone.
There was nobody helping him.
Nobody helping.
That
so
was
to me,
it
was
there's
some truth to that. I think when you don't have your teammates.
No, he could get it back in the graces.
He can get it back, but it seems like there was some truth to what I was reading.
Now,
on
one
social
thing
media.
I'll say, we'll talk about the starting lineup, but what was amazing is I assumed once that got Miguel Almiron and once, obviously, from Miranchuk last year, that Zande Silva and Mascara and maybe even Tiare had one foot out the door. We kept all of them.
Yeah.
So we have not had people coming off the bench who can do. Zande Silva is an MLS starting kind of player, and he is not going to start for us.
Yeah.
Off the bench, he is I don't know whether he's going to stay happy that way. I don't know. That's Ronnie Dyla's, issue to try to get that to happen. But that guy can really play, and he's coming off the bench for us. Mascara's coming off the bench, and Tiare as a change of pace over Latte Lath. We finally have people who can come off the bench and change the game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is no longer hoping for a miracle with Jurgen Damm or Miguel Berry or...
and I think that's where Mascara and Silva are going to have to realize how important they are to us winning this year. They are huge difference makers, even coming off the bench or playing roles that are starting roles at certain segments in the season when somebody gets injured. I think they're going to be critical to our success, but they've got to accept that as their role.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. If they can buy in, then they're going to be great. Yeah. Now, before we get to the super starters and all that, we want to talk about, there's a lot of chatter out there about Luke Brennan and Togayashi, and particularly Chang Ki.
Yep.
Chang Ki is 17 years old.
I saw a little bit of him today in the preseason Dallas game.
Today, actually, 3 people went by him like he was a cone. Defensively, those people who are thinking that he's starting left back for us in MLS, think again. He's going to be with the twos. He looks like he's got some real talent, but No. They also think people think Luke Brennan looks terrific against Chattanooga. He looks terrific against Birmingham. He looked terrific in the U.S. Open Cup last year against some weaker sides, but against the good teams, disappear. So
I saw a little of the immaturity, which he can still progress, but like today, Latte Lath made a beautiful run, and he was just not in sync with him at all.
If you watch him, he got a chance to play the number 10 in the scrimmage with the second squad, right in the middle, which I think he would be smart to learn how to do because he doesn't have the pace to go by people out wide, and he just didn't move. He just wasn't moving at all. If he watched Miranchuk in the first half who was playing that, or in the before him, he was moving all over the place, right? And Luke Brennan just got in there, and he was just standing on the wing and waiting for the ball.
Yeah.
Here's my hot take, right? And I mentioned this to you earlier. Luke Brennan looks to me a product of the U.S. tryout system. Okay, he's the guy, you go to a tryout and you're like, that guy's really good because he's good on his feet, he's good in tight places, he scores some goals in a tryout where nobody's playing organized defense. Okay, as soon as you get in a real game where people are playing organized defense, he doesn't know where to move, he's never going to run by you on a big field, and he suddenly looks like...
So there's two things I saw from the preseason game from him today. He was going down the left side, was able to attack the fullback, who was on his heels, and at the last second, his move was just half-hearted. It had no bite in it, and we got like a corner kick or a throw-in off of it because it bounced off the guy, but it was like, it had no creativity, it had no meaning behind it. And
he got the ball with a chance to actually also have a shot.
Yeah, and that was my second point.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so then he was at the top of the box. He had his head up. I mean, the far post net was screaming to me, like
screaming for
please,
a curler.
Curl it in, like Saba had done earlier, and he chose not to, and he ended up.
He laid it off to Latte Lath, who immediately took the space, stepped up, and did try the curler.
He did try the curler.
So if you were like, he was like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Like, it's on, right?
Yeah.
So I got two words for
His
you.
lack of confidence. Right
I got 2 words for you, Mikey Dobbs.
2 words.
And these
Latte Lath?
are negative words about Luke Brennan.
Okay.
Andrew Carlton.
Yeah.
That's the future of Luke Brennan.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, folks out there. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I don't think so. I don't think he's ever going to be an MLS starter.
Okay. Now, a guy that impressed me.
I hope he proves me wrong.
A guy that impressed me in the preseason today was Matthew Edwards.
Yes.
Physical right back.
So just before you talk about him, just to give the people the context, right? So Matt Edwards played in our academy, went to North Carolina to play college, right? At North Carolina, he was a first-team All-American, and then we had the first right to sign him back as a college player because he was in the academy, and we did. Now talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, I just very impressed with his physicality. Again, so fresh in my eyes to see the opposite of what Lennon has been doing all these years. He's up on people's backs.
Defensively
He's defensively
strong.
winning the ball, and that's what the press is.
Today, if you watched him vis-a-vis Hernandez, he was up challenging for whatever, and Hernandez was backing off.
Yeah. I wonder who got trained previously.
Good Lord.
Thank goodness. But I also will say the pinch in general seems to have lightened up. I know that you're saying...
They still are clouding the middle, but they seem to be...
Ball
getting
side,
back faster, and ball side they're getting out there.
Yeah, ball side
is way better.
Way better.
It's way better. Whether or not it's going to be perfect, I don't know.
Now, I did notice Derek Williams as our center back laying off still, a guy who's got all the physicality of a Matt Edwards, but not doing what Matt Edwards is getting up.
If he doesn't get there, he's going to be in Dyla's doghouse real quick.
Yeah.
Because Gregerson is going to be strong stepping up. Cobb likes to step up. They've got super protection in front of them in Cleese and Sleaze.
Do you read anything into the fact that Abram got the start in the first 45 today?
No, because Gregerson, so clearly, I don't really get this, but so Latte Lath and Gregerson, who are clearly both coming off of injuries. Latte Lath had a groin injury at Middlesbrough, and he's coming back. He played 50 minutes today. Gregerson also had an injury. He played 45 minutes in the scrimmage on Wednesday and 45 minutes today.
Yep.
All of those both look like I don't know why the guys who are coming back, he played them late. Maybe because it's a little less physical. People are tired.
Yeah.
He figures you're better, you're less chance of getting hurt. But clearly he had them playing the 45, 50 minutes with the idea that they're ready to start on the weekend. And I'm going to predict that Latte Lath and Gregerson both start next weekend.
Okay, I love it. Now, there was a big missing person in today's scrimmage. Is it an injury or
Yes.
with Amador?
Amador has been non-existent the whole preseason. He has an injury. So that's a bad move. Presumably Hernandez is going to start for him.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to be Changhui. No offense I think he could be awesome in the future, but at 17 years old, he's not ready.
Yep.
And then at right side, Lennon finally, after the shoulder surgery in the offseason, this week was cleared to actually begin training, which is awesome. So he should be back in a matter of short weeks, especially because with a shoulder injury, he could have been fitness the whole time. So he shouldn't need to actually do fitness. It should just be getting back to game playing.
I would think 2 to 3 weeks to give him some minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to be starting anytime soon. I'm going to predict that it's going to be Edwards and Hernandez on the opening day.
I agree.
Which is not ideal because presumably Lennon and Amador are starting outside backs.
Okay. Before we get to the double pivot, the play of Miranchuk.
Miranchuk. Yes.
What do you think?
There's a lot of people who are disappointed with Miranchuk as a designated player last year. Not us.
Not one of them.
I totally disagree. He is classy. He's really good on the ball. His first touch is amazing. His movement is
Clearly
good.
he can shoot a ball.
But what's clear about Miranchuk is him working with others is going to be so much better, right? So
he's playing with a different caliber.
He's been waiting for Almiron and Saba, right? You know,
the fact that he can look up and see Latte Lath making that behind the defensive run is going to be magical.
You know, we talked a lot last year about Pineda and bubble hockey, right? All of our outside midfielders, they were literally on a line going up and down the field. If you watch the scrimmage today, right? Miguel Almiron was starting on the right, Saba was starting on the left, but Saba was coming over to the left. Almiron was going over to the other side. Sometimes they were both overloading on the side. Miranchuk was moving in between. It seemed incredibly dynamic. They had an open license.
I was going to ask you think that's how it's going to be for the most part throughout the season?
Yes.
At least during certain games where it'll be a little more fluid?
Yes.
Or do you
know
think
why?
he's testing things out?
No, I think he's giving them the green light, and that's what they're going to do.
Okay.
And the reason is because he has Sleaze and Cleach anchoring the middle. Now, those guys are playing the dreaded double pivot, right? So, but if you watch today, I mean, so when we talk about it with Pineda, the double pivot, Pineda's version of the double pivot is supposed to be one guy going forward, one guy, hanging out back, right? They played left-right, and that's how they always went. The bubble hockey was still in place, right? So they never could go across, right? So what would happen was, right, so one of the guys would go forward.
Bubble hockey.
Yeah, and then if you played on the other side, like the guy who was back, if he was the left of the double pivot, right, he would stay on the left, and he would literally leave the right side open. I mean, it was the most asinine thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you watch today, right, suddenly Sleaze and Cleese were not playing left-right. It was one guy going forward and the other guy back, and as soon as the guy who was back was going ball side and the other guy was rotating in, and they were switching left and right the whole time. A true double pivot, Mikey Dobbs.
In terms of true pronunciation, I think I heard Jason Longshore today.
Are we butchering Cleese?
We are, evident, which I have been forever. I think it's click.
Click.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, like clicking him out.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Apologize.
I learned that today on the preseason announcement, assuming Jason Longshore has studied up how to pronounce people's names.
Oh my goodness, were they actually doing it right, Mikey Dobbs? And you saw at times Cleek got all the way up their box, and the same thing with Sleaze, sometimes all the way up to their box. And we would have this last year. Occasionally their two midfielders would be all the way up to the box together, and when we lost the ball, the midfield was like parting of the seas. Today, every time Click went forward, right, then Sleaze was back and vice versa. I mean, and if you do that and they actually can master that, right, then now Almiron and Miranchuk, and you saw it today, all of those guys were willing to come back. Miranchuk was coming back, right? Yeah. But he was coming back at the direction of the central midfielder, Click or Sleaze, who were back. They were saying, I'm back here and you go get on the outside. Okay? So you had Miranchuk coming back and it was under a smart direction, right? It looked so good.
By the way, we didn't talk about Miggy in the preseason game, who rattled the upper left bar.
What a rocket.
What a rocket. Classic. I mean, it kind of reminds me of so many times he has gotten unlucky on, even when he was at Newcastle.
Yeah, he tends to hit the post a lot.
He does, man. He hits the post a lot.
It's not so good, but anyway.
Anyway, outside of that, what did you think of his performance? Any observations or worries or pros?
So first of all, the field today was a little smaller than what you're going to see at the Bend, so that limits him in space. I think he's just going to grow in as he gets more comfortable. He needs a little more space to run at people. But the amazing thing is him and Miranchuk and Saba and Click and Sleaze, they were playing one touch. And when they got it going, I mean, FC Dallas was like, where'd he go? Yeah. Like, they had no idea. And the other thing about it is all of those guys are arriving in the box. No longer are we going to be just the forward Latte Lath. Yeah. Those guys are arriving in the box. If the ball pops out to them, which it did today, twice it popped out to Saba, he can score. If it pops out to Miranchuk, he can score. If it pops out to Almiron, he can score.
Yeah. Because we didn't see all of our starters in the same segment today, it's kind of hard to tell. When I first turned on in the first half today, I was a little surprised we had possession, but a lot of the possession was still in our half, like the old Atlanta United. That was a little bit worrisome. But again, we didn't have Latte Lath to play more direct to.
Well, the other thing that I think you saw a little bit of, and you'll see more, was remarkable, again, as a double pivot, which didn't happen in the old thing, is Click and Sleaze at times were dropping back in order to help us break the line into the midfield. Yeah. Dropping into those little pockets of space to give them an option out of the back. A couple of times as we played out, they went in behind to cover. I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be awesome. Now, our center backs.
So the one position we haven't talked about is goalkeeping.
Yep.
Brad Guzan, obviously probably the last season I would hope or want him to be playing for Atlanta United, but
he's amazing, but he's getting old.
But certainly not. He's not going to be the weak link for us in terms of maybe being the huge difference maker. Given Cohen, I don't know. What do you think?
Cohen doesn't look to me like he's going to supplant Guzan, even though I think Guzan has lost the stuff. You could see it today. I mean, you saw the best and worst of Guzan, right? He made an amazing save at the end of the game, right, where he stretched out. It was an unbelievable save. And then the goal, he came out and he didn't even come close. He flapped at the ball. It went over his head. And it was an easy touch in behind him.
Yeah.
I
missed the goal.
See Guzan doing that in his prime. That's an older Guzan who's struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're going to see it. Now, the saving grace, I think, for our back two and for Guzan is that we should have a lot of possession. We have tremendous protection in the midfield. Our midfield should. I mean, I don't think MLS has maybe ever seen a midfield like we have.
Yeah.
Ever. Because some teams have had attacking talent. Like if you look at LA Galaxy last year, they had tremendous amount of attacking talent. But our guys actually have the ability to play together and move the ball through the midfield. And also, those guys play both offense and defense. Like Ricky Puig or some guy like that, they don't tackle, they don't do anything. But Clique will get a tackle, Miranchuk will get a tackle, Almiron will get a tackle, Saba will get a tackle.
Yeah. Okay.
That is a really balanced center midfield and is going to be awesome.
So certainly you're high on Cincinnati making an upgrade with all of their last minute signings.
Yes.
Who is on a higher trajectory in the East than any other team as compared to their team and coaching and everything last year? It's Atlanta United, right?
Trajectory, us for sure. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're a better team.
Correct.
But trajectory for sure.
But why shouldn't we be a better team?
Offensively, we should be a team that nobody can handle. I mean, literally nobody can handle. I mean, Latte Lath is going to have so many opportunities. You know, if he plays well and stays healthy, I mean, he could have serious goal numbers. Obviously, he has to settle a little bit, but he's going to have a tremendous amount of service, right? We are also going to be able to keep people in their end, which, I mean, how long have we been saying this?
Well, if Williams steps up as the center back, it's pressure on him.
We're going to have to see how Dyla reacts. We're going to have moments in the counterattack where we're backing off and we give people too much ability to get up the field, and we're going to give up goals early. I think. And the question is, what does Dyla do about it?
Yeah.
That's the big question of the whole season. We're going to learn what kind of a coach he is by how he reacts to what's going on in the back four. We got to watch the back four, watch the back four. What are we doing on the outside? Do we have it marked up? Are we getting up the field? What are we doing in the middle? Do we have pressure getting up the field? Do we have cover in behind them? That's what we're looking for.
Okay. So now we've talked about all the teams and in depth on Atlanta United right there. Where do you think we're going to net out? Hayden seems to think third or fourth.
He's got third or fourth.
I said third or fourth, and I think that's what you said last podcast as well.
Before we knew everybody was
Has
going.
it changed at all based on your last couple weeks of seeing?
I think so.
Okay.
So the big change to me is I still was thinking that Columbus was going to really be a contender in the East, and they just don't have the squad. Now, they may make a last-minute signing, and that could change things further. They got to do something. Right now, there's nobody on that team who can score, period. And as good as coach as Wilfred Nancy is, if you don't have anybody who's dynamic and can score, you're done.
Yeah. So you're saying it's much easier for us to get to that third spot,
For sure.
knowing how competitive Inter Miami and Cincinnati are.
For sure.
Third should be ours, and anything above that is
right.
gravy.
I'm going to make you predict first because I know exactly where I'm predicting Atlanta.
Okay. I'm predicting third.
Okay. And I'm going to take Atlanta United as second.
Okay. I love it.
So I think that Cincinnati is going to get off to a tremendous start because their back four is so set.
Yeah.
Defensively, they're going to be so solid out of the gate, and they don't have to score that much to win games early. I think Miami's also going to get off to a tremendous start. They have tremendous attacking ability, but you worry about them as the season goes on. What happens when they have the extra matches? What happens when Suarez and Messi's legs fall off, right? Are those guys going to play a whole season? No chance.
And it's a big risk with the young friend coach.
Yes, and Mascherano is not a proven coach like Tata is.
And if their main goalkeeper gets injured, we know where their goalkeeping situation is.
Last year, they scored enough to cover all the mistakes, okay? They're clearly going to score because Messi's not going to stop scoring if he's on the field. But if he's not on the field, you know, what's amazing what Tata did is the moments when he was on the field, they still scored and they still won, right? And I really worry under Mascherano, will they still do that? Now, they should be better defensively, maybe. I don't know. That's the big question.
So who do you have number one then? Miami
I have
or
Cincinnati number one and us two.
Okay.
And I think the only reason why we're number two is it's going to take time for the team to bed. And then we're going to be getting better and better as the game goes on. I think by the end of the season, we're going to be the best team in the East.
Still think Miami is up there.
You always think Miami.
Well, because they've got Messi, and that's...
Remember, I won that bet.
Everything.
You still owe me 2 bottles of
Well,
wine.
you know that the statistics against Atlanta United were the most ridiculous, outweighed thing. Miami completely won that playoff. Nevertheless.
They didn't win the
Hey.
game.
So, all right. What about in the West?
So in the West,
You said LAFC,
I think
right?
LAFC gets it done again. Galaxy's going to have some growing pains with all the turnover.
Then maybe Seattle.
Seattle, people think are really much better. I'm not sure. I could see a dark horse slipping in there.
Yeah.
I think the East, again, is going to be better than the West.
Maybe San Diego comes
It's funny
out.
because I said all season that the East was way better. The top 3 teams in the East were better than anybody. Maybe the 2 LA teams could compete, but I really thought that Cincinnati, Miami, and Columbus were all better than LA's. And when it got to the playoffs, it all fell apart. I mean, Cincinnati really had a problem because they couldn't score, and that really made them vulnerable in the playoffs, right? Miami, obviously, against us, it was a, miracle. And Columbus, the moment they sold Aiden Morris, it really affected them.
Yeah.
So down the stretch, I think those teams were regressing, and the Western teams were getting better because they were getting used to each other. We look, to me, a lot like LA Galaxy with a ton of talent. They just need time to bed in and play together. And by the end of the season, I expect us to be LA Galaxy and win the title.
Okay. What else do you want to touch on here? Any European soccer stuff, or we talked about it all?
I think that we talked about it all. We
I
wanted to
think we
really
will.
cover the MLS and give a full recounting and a full roundabout.
All
the
I
league.
know, Dave, is I'm excited about a new chapter with Atlanta United. Ready to get down there on Saturday and see if there's a kind of of that old energy.
Anybody who's out there who doesn't have tickets, I recommend you getting them. I think we're going to be really good.
Yeah, I think we're going to be really good and
Really entertaining,
Get out
too.
on Saturday because I think it's going to be electric.
Yeah.
The reintroduction of Miguel Almiron and Latte Lath, by all accounts, looks like he'll be in the game.
Yep.
So finally, just want to thank Hayden, Wild Heaven Fox Brothers for having us in this
Yeah, I don't know where Hayden disappeared to
awesome
now,
location.
but
Thanks
you.
for Hayden for jumping on. And if you guys haven't been to this location, it's phenomenal.
Toco Hills.
Toco Hills Shopping Center, right where the Flying Biscuit is in the corner. It's nestled in here. It's an awesome spot. Next time, hopefully, we'll get the audio sorted out.
Had some issues with the live audio, but
Man, if it wasn't technology stuff, I might be prepared.
Well, we're getting better at MLS and a little less good at the technology.
Yeah,
though,
Well, it's Saturday night, Dave. Let's go enjoy wine.
Everybody, help you enjoy your Saturday night, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, subscribe, ATL on Fire, all your favorite podcast platforms, and on YouTube at atlonfire.com.
As we sit by the fire, we all feel desire.